starting out in e-commerce or expanding, it can sometimes feel like you also have to become a legal expert as well. Hi, I'm Courtney Eckerly here at the Marketing Sherpa Media Center at IRCE. And with me today is Cliff Enico, who is an e-commerce lawyer and speaker here at IRCE. Welcome.
You did notice the temperature dropped in the last 10 degrees in the last minute. Did you notice that?
I did.
Yes, I am a lawyer, yes. So,
well, tell us, what are some of the struggles that e-commerce people...
I work a lot with people who sell online. I was, for many years, the legal and tax guru for eBay University. So I've met eBay sellers, Amazon sellers, all over the country and the world. And I'll tell you, when you first start out, selling online is so much fun. It becomes an obsession, and you forget after a while that there are rules. You start out by, like dumpster diving the neighborhood on garbage day, but then you forget that the garbage must be on the curb before you can legally take it. There's stuff like that. People really get caught up in the excitement of e-commerce. But there are rules, and my job here at IRCE is going to be to tell them some of the basic things you have to watch out for to stay out of trouble. Okay. And basically, I'm going to be talking about four things. And there are four things I always tell people. Number one, know your merchandise. Any claim that you make on an eBay listing or an Amazon seller's page is gospel, and people have the right to rely on that. If you say that something is 100% genuine, but it isn't, it's a reproduction, or it's been monkeyed with over the years, or the paint is not 100% original. I do a lot of work with antique sellers. This is a big issue for them. You can get into a lot of legal trouble, and people can sue you. They can sue for fraud. They can get their money back, even though they don't deserve to get their money back. You have to really know your merchandise. That's really the key to surviving a lot of the legal stuff when you're selling online. Second thing is, make sure you don't steal anybody else's content. Ripping off other people's photos. You're just too lazy to take a photo of the laptop computer that you're selling, so you look for one that's just the same on eBay and you cut and paste. You really can't do that. The person who took that photo has rights in that. And also too, unless it's exactly the same as what you're selling, the box looks exactly the same, you're taking a risk that someone's going to look at this and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what I bought. That's not that same thing. Fraud does happen online. Third thing I tell people about is make sure that you're not selling counterfeit merchandise. One of the surest ways to get knocked off of eBay, Amazon, Etsy, any online platform that I'm aware of, is that somebody says you're selling counterfeit stuff. And usually it's the manufacturer who just doesn't like the fact that you're reselling Coach handbags. They probably want to shut you down. That's something that happens a lot on the online platforms. When you buy a container load of stuff from an estate liquidator, you should know if these are original Coach bags or Tiffany. There used to be a thing in the early days of eBay where people were taking the Tiffany boxes and selling the empty boxes on eBay. Now, what do you think was going on there?
Wow. So
what was going on? What do you think was going on? Who would buy an empty Tiffany box with no jewelry in it?
A man who's trying to trick his wife.
A cheap boyfriend, exactly. And all I can say is, if you are ever tempted, of course, eBay now has long ago shut that down. You can't do that anymore. They're very good about doing that. But if you're seriously tempted about doing something like that, I only have 3 words for you: accessory to murder. Okay, accessory to murder. So seriously, if you have to know your merchandise. Some of the knockoffs that are coming out of China and other places in Asia are very good, and they fool the experts sometimes. So seriously, you have to know there are places online, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow, on YouTube especially, where people do videos. Now, if you really want to know if this is genuine, look for that on the bottom, and the 2 swords must cross exactly in the middle. That kind of stuff. That's the inside baseball that your buyers are counting on you to know. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is taxes, unfortunately. Yes, you do have to pay taxes when you sell stuff online. If you make a profit, the IRS does not care if you are a business or a hobby or just cleaning out grandma's attic. If you're making money doing this, they want you to report that income and they want you to pay tax on it. So that's, sorry, bad news, but that is part of the world that you're living in. If you're making a profit, if you've lost money, then that's a different thing. But if you're making money, you have to. And the other thing is sales taxes. A lot of people don't know, if you're selling stuff on eBay, Amazon, Etsy, wherever, and you sell to somebody who lives in the same state that you do, you must collect and pay sales tax, even though the transaction occurred online. There is no internet exception for sales tax. If the seller and the buyer are in the same state, okay, then you got to pay taxes. Now the good news is, at least under current law, if you sell to somebody in another state, you don't have to collect and pay sales tax. Right now, there's people that want to change this, but right now there is no sales tax on interstate transactions or international transactions, okay? But, and here's where the Amazon people need to listen in a little bit, okay? If you are selling stuff online, you always have to pay sales tax when you sell to somebody in your state, but let's say that your inventory is being stored in another state, in a warehouse. Let's say you're doing Amazon FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, where your stuff is, let's say I'm in Connecticut, my stuff is in a pallet somewhere in Kentucky, and they're shipping the stuff to sellers all over the world, okay? If that's what I'm doing, whenever they make a sale to somebody in Kentucky, I am required to charge and pay Kentucky sales tax because my business has a legal presence. That pallet of stuff sitting on the Amazon warehouse floor is a legal presence, what we lawyers call a nexus, N-E-X-U-S, and that means that I have to charge sales tax in that state as well as Connecticut. And that's a rule that gets a lot of Amazon sellers into some trouble sometimes, and it's hard because they don't know all the time where their merchandise is. They don't know. So how do you comply in a situation like that? These are the kinds of questions that I'm going to be talking about. The practical, I'm not one of these guys that goes like this and says, look down my nose and say, hey, you fouled up here, you shouldn't have. I'm not one of these kind of people. I try to say, this is how you prevent this. This is how you solve the problem. This is how you try to work. And I try to make it funny. I don't know if I succeed or not, but I try.
Well, and this is all just, an overview for somebody out there who wants to be proactive legally with their e-commerce. What would you recommend that they do? Should they reach out to somebody like you, or they're online?
Every small business needs to have a good lawyer and a good accountant. You need both, because we look at different things. We're different animals. You got to have that. I've written a bunch of books on this topic, and there are a bunch of other authors too who've written about the legal. Buy these books. These books are $20, $30, and they're deductible, by the way. They are fully deductible. Buy some of these books, learn some of your basic legal rights and obligations. I also have a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos on various legal topics, mostly for eBay and Amazon sellers. Listen to these things. Try to learn. No one's trying to make you into a lawyer. You shouldn't have to be a lawyer to run a small retail business, but you do have to know the legal environment in which you operate. Because believe me, if you're selling, $5,000 a month on Amazon, and they shut you down because somebody, said that you were selling a counterfeit item on one of your listings, on one of your SKU pages, that's going to shut you down. You cannot do anything on that site until that problem is resolved, and you don't want to wait until that happens. You want to have a strategy for dealing with those things. Believe me, nobody likes paying lawyers, Courtney. It's like paying taxes. Nobody likes to do that either. But we're kind of a necessary evil here. Good news is legal fees are always deductible on your taxes, and we can keep, if you have the right relationship, we can keep you from making a lot of bad mistakes that'll just get you into a lot of trouble.
Well, thank you so much, Cliff, for taking the time.
I really appreciate this.
Walking us through the legalese.
Well, it's a lot of fun. And seriously, and don't obsess about this stuff. Don't let fear of the law or fear of taxes prevent you from building a successful e-commerce business. And an ounce of prevention is really worth a pound of cure here. Let's face it. Our legal system is very complicated. I don't have to tell you that. The Internal Revenue Code alone is something that's over 100,000 pages long. Nobody knows all this stuff. But know the stuff that's important. As long as you know your merchandise, and as long as you describe it accurately, and as long as you pay your taxes, you're doing as much as anybody can do to remain in compliance. Don't worry about the little stuff. That's why you have your lawyer and your accountant there to help you.
Thank you so much, for all that great advice.
Thanks, Gwenny, very much. Real pleasure.
And if you would like to see more videos, please go to marketingsherpa.com/IRCE.